Hello, everyone. Welcome to another art making on Comfortable Shoes Studio. I'm Les, and in this episode, I am attempting a comics technique that I learned from Drewscape. Drewscape is a comic artist who is here on YouTube. Really enjoy his channel. I find it very intriguing and interesting. So he recently posted a video where he kind of did a warm up. It was a single page comic, and he did some sort of random squares. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a two-page spread. Never done this before. And after I do the squares, I'm gonna go in with my um, large poster paint um, sticks. The sort of the mixed media sticks. These are a poster paint version. They dry really fast, and I can write on top of them after they are dried with gel pen and other paint markers. So I really like these, and I'm basically doing what Drewscape did, which is basically make some blobs and some marks on the page just to be a little more random with the art. So I'm attempting a comics page here about a day in the life. So I'm just kind of going through with these sticks and adding some color in. I'm thinking about skies as I'm doing this, so I'm doing some sunset colors over here on the right hand page. Not sure you can hear my dog in the background. He's decided that it's time to prepare his bed to curl up in. Um, so yeah, so here I am just laying in some color. One of the things that I kind of want to do in the future with this technique, I've done this a couple more times, and I think I get more and more successful each time I use this, is to focus on kind of shapes and not so much big blobs of color. So Drewscape in his video, he makes more shapes in a mid-tone than he does he doesn't use color in the same way. So he works with like mid-tones. And I think I've got to try that in the future instead of these super bright, super saturated colors. These paint sticks, incredibly bright, saturated, cheerful colors, which work for this. I'm just playing around. Um, so you can add water to these. I find that they don't lift all that well. So I'm using the white to kind of blend and tone down. Um, you got to work quick with these sticks, or they start to dry really quickly. So that's been kind of an issue that I've had with this, is that they dry too quick. So attempting to get some, you know, blending going on is pretty difficult with these sort of paint sticks. I love them, don't get me wrong, but just pointing out that they dry really quickly. The other mixed media sticks that I have don't dry nearly as quickly, but are not as controllable as these sticks, and leave a greasy residue that is kind of hard to draw on top of with my gel pens. And when I use paint markers on top of them, it really tends to lift the color in a way that I find a little unpleasant. But here I'm just blocking in. So I wanted to depict a person walking across a landscape, and um, so I blocked in some blue for denim, red. Happened to be wearing a red and black check shirt that day, and yeah, so I blocked those in, and then I did a pink blob for my head, um, and then brown for hair, which I later decide is my beanie. If you've a couple of episodes ago, I did a cartoon me, and I cartoonified myself. And in that cartoon, I wear beanies a lot in the winter, and especially fall and winter. I have a tendency to cut my hair quite short um, for the beginning of the school year, and my head is always cold. And I almost always am like, why, why did I cut my hair now? Um, so yeah, so I wear a beanie. So the so yeah, my cartoon me has a beanie on, and so I turn the brown blob from hair as intended here to a beanie. So again, you can see I'm loading in some greens. I find these greens far too bright. They're very saturated colors, and I would, if this were watercolor, I would be toning it down with a hint of red in it or orange to kind of just chill out that color just a little bit, because they are very unnatural looking and not quite where you want them for a landscape. But again, vibes not realism, and I do in the end like how this turned out. um this is just sort of a fun um exercise to kind of loosen me up, get warmed up, and I really did quite enjoy this exercise. So I'm trying to add some brown in and get it to blend with, because I'm trying to tone that bright lemon limey green down. And as I learned with this page, these are not blending particularly well, so that is just how quickly they dry. And so not a lot of blending there. You got to work wet into wet with these. So lay down the color, lay another color down on top of it. I did find, as I've used these paint sticks more, that they um, like if you go over the top of them with a gel pen or a brush marker, it will lift them up into whatever ink you're putting on top of it. Not a deal breaker, but just something I didn't realize was happening until I got into it. So these particular paint sticks are really new to me. I've basically done like 8 pages in my art journal with them. So not a huge amount worked with these so far. I'm getting there with them. Like I said, I'm really enjoying them for this sort of really loose kind of method of working, and the fact that you can do one layer within a couple of minutes, it's dry, and then you can work another layer over the top of it, or you can work directly into it while it's still wet and get a little bit of blending. Adding some of the darker blue in here. This particular set has 12 colors, and they're pretty basic colors. They would probably mix okay if I were on a, and I bet these would mix better on a harder pressed paper. This paper is pretty absorbent and fibery, so I'm getting a relatively thin coating of the uh, paint stick on there. So I'm using the white to blend the paint stick. And it's kind of moving around the page. And now that I've got a layer of paint stick underneath, I notice that the paint stick that's been put on top of that blends a little better. So again, you got to work with layers. So now with this, I have kind of All right, so I have grabbed my Uniball 207 with a bold nib, and I'm working right on top of the paint sticks. These have dried a little bit off camera. I hit them with my heat gun and really dried them out. They don't take very long. They're already mostly dry, but you can tell when they are super wet, or not super wet. These aren't super wet, but when they're damp, you can tell because the pen just sort of skips over the top of them. And yeah, so just working into this image, adding a little bit of line work to bring out the details, letting, like, the thing with these dye stick or these paint sticks is that they are inaccurate. Like, you're not in this size, sketchbook size, you are not going to get an image that is detailed. Basically it's like big blobs of color, big blocks of color. That's what you're gonna get out of these paint sticks. And then I use the gel pen and brush markers to bring out some of the details and add details in. Um, my cartoon me, looking a little more svelte here than in person or in the actual other cartoon. I found that I couldn't get the shirt and pants shape quite where I would want them. Um, other like it, in the cartoon me version, I do find with these particular paint sticks that if I draw with the gel pen first and then I overlay them, it ends up um lifting the black into the paint. So I always draw with the paint sticks first and then add in the um the gel pen later, the ink and the details later. It just works better with this material. And so here you can see I've drawn cartoon me walking um, through a field with the trees in the distance. There's a close up of cartoon me. Um, there's a spot where the grass is really high, and then, there's a close up. My cartoon me has a camera, and I'm out taking a walk to take pictures. Um, so yeah, then the page two cartoon me is snapping a picture of something, and then walking some more, and then there's this beautiful sunset. um, yeah, I was just, I don't know, just trying to play around with the like panels in a comic book setup. Um, you know, kind of just like a simple scene, but also it tells like a story of something that's been happening in my life, right? Like, I go for walks and I take photos, and I do try to go into areas where there are fields and trees and places where I can see beautiful sunsets. Um, so yeah, really enjoying this sort of format and how freeing it is. But also, like, I've got to try it in the way that Drewscape did, um, where he did like these random blobs and then he pulled the story out of those blobs. Whereas with this, yeah, I started out with random blobs and I just shifted to doing a landscape because that's easy. And then I was like, well, I got to put a figure in here. And I think that works pretty well. Like, I like that. But I really want to try that more random style that Drewscape did in his video. I'll put a link to that video down in the description. But really, everything Drewscape does, I find really inspiring. So I really want to try more of that storytelling in comics format. I've got some stories I think that'll be kind of fun to do in this kind of way that are really simple. I can probably do in a spread or two in my art journal. But I also think this is a good way of telling a story in an art journal without using any words. So this for me is just sort of like in addition to my regular art journaling practice, which is drawing portraits, doing some illustrated journaling, and all of that fun stuff. So here I'm using the flesh tone in this paint marker set to kind of add some more color to the face, but this is a really pale flesh tone, and I think I actually prefer the pink. And also with this paint marker, it lifted some of the color, but also lifted the gel ink up into the tip. So it ended up being like zombie me going for a photo walk. So I do end up going back in with a different paint marker and repinking that, if you will. The pink in this paint marker set is much more purple than it is pink. So ended up not using that. But these paint markers are really great. They're very opaque and they have a nice little brush tip. So, adding in some like little brushy strokes here. Again, these are another set like the paint sticks. And these are they're meant for children. These are not professional art supplies. I really like Malto paint markers, but I also really enjoy super cheap Amazon special paint markers, just for their like cost and the fact that like starting out like I don't really want to spend all that much for an entire set of color, where what I'll do with the Malto markers is I already have a selection of Malto, but if I were to start with like a paint marker set like this, I would only replace the markers that I actually use. So, you know, that that ends up working. All right, so here I'm adding in some little details with the black brush pen out of this paint marker set. Kind of adding in some of the trees. I kind of wish that the green that was in this paint marker set actually worked for the shade of green that I needed, but it doesn't. It's far too pastel. So anyway, yeah, this is a really fun experiment. If you get a chance to, check this out or try it yourself, just draw some random panels on an art journal spread and add in some blobs of color or blobs of midtone, and then see what story you can pull out of it. What kind of story can you tell yourself? I felt a little goofy doing this at first, because, comics aren't really my thing. I love comics, I enjoy reading comics. Huge fan of a lot of comic artists, but I've never really done much comics drawing myself. Plenty of reading, but yeah, I've never really done this myself. So this I like I said before, I'm definitely doing this again, and really enjoyed this. Um as I've already said, go check out Drewscape. He's got a great channel. Watch everything he's ever put out cuz it's worth it. Anyway, with that, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.